Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold the phone. So people are actually saying Mega Man 11 wasn't that good? Okay, let me be kind of the cleansing in the room. Okay, first off, I don't play Mega Man that much. I am just strictly hardcore Nintendo. I barely play anything outside of it, besides like Fortnite. But Mega Man was also a game that I've always been interested in, and I even brought the old Legacy Collection with Mega Mans 1 through 4. But when I saw Mega Man 11, I was super excited to get into it, and I heard a lot of people talking about how the game just didn't quite live up to the old Mega Man hype, and that a lot of things were different. Well, I'm here to say no, it's not, because I played some of the old games, and then I played this one, and I can tell you what, Mega Man 11 is one of my favorite games this year, and let me tell you exactly why. I absolutely fell in love with the design for Mega Man 11 stages. I mean, they don't feel overpacked and crammed like past Mega Man stages did for me. It felt like they were wide open and you could easily dodge enemies when you had to. Now, with most Mega Man games, you really don't know where to start and you just pick a random robot master to go to first. But with this game, it's pretty obvious that most people probably pick Blockman first, as that is the first stage we saw in the trailers. Blockman stage pretty much serves as the basic stage for beginners, and it gets you started off on the right path. If you watched any of the trailers, you would know this is probably the one you wanted to go to, and especially the fact since the ability from Blockman's is one of the best in the game. Fuse Man stage was a little bit more difficult, but it put lots of use with the double gear system. The slow motion time effect was really good to dodge the lasers, and they were actually required in a lot of sections or you would take hits. And with Impact Man stage, there was lots of tricky enemies to dodge. There was enemies that threw hammers at you from above, and you had to find a tricky method in order to defeat them, along with the drill sections, which would shoot drills out of the walls, the floors, and the ceilings at you, and give you slight time to move out of the way unless you use the double gear system. Now, there aren't really any really bad stages in this game, but there are a couple of stages that I just didn't find that interesting, and one of them was Torchman stage, because it wasn't super hard, but the main difficulty of this stage was just the placement of the platforms and the enemies. For instance, there were lots of total pole platforms that were really thin that you had to stand on, and it was easy to fall in gaps, which means an instant death. And the firewalls that chase you across the screen can be really difficult if you don't know how to use the double gear system correctly. And the speed is incredibly monumental here. If you do not know how to slow down speed and get through enemies at a decent pace, the firewall will kill you in one instant touch, and that can be annoying. Acid Man stage was also annoying, especially because of these stupid little robots that shot out mini baby spiders, and they were just so hard to hit. You really had to utilize some type of weapon gear that hit them while they were on the ground, and they got really annoying because they would jump and take just the same amount of damage as any other big robot. But the main part for here was the demanding underwater mechanics. It was just really difficult. It felt like a gravity field rather than underwater, and especially with the spike sections. As you know, in Mega Man games, one touch of the spikes is an instant KO. But the difference here is now you're underwater and you have underwater physics trying to dodge these spikes, and not even the double gear system can help you and most of the times, and it's really annoying. And don't even get me started on the little syringe robots that shoots different chemicals into the pool water, because you have no clue what half of the chemicals do. Obviously the yellow one hurts, but then there's a red one, there's a blue one, and it has me paranoid the entire level. But some of my favorites included Tundra Man stage, which had the slippery ground effect that most games have in ice levels, but it had fast-paced platforming with the effects of the wind, especially the end section when it made you feel like you were in a complete rush. It was awesome. You had to make sure you nailed every single platforming jump, and it felt great once you completed it. Blastman stage was another great example of using the double gear system correctly. It had very cool use of the speed and chain reaction with the explosions. Pretty much you would send a robotic monkey or some type of other type of robot over to the explosions and a giant chain reaction would occur. Now some sections require you to use the double gear system to slow things down, and some would just require pure speed out of you. And I felt it was a great sense of urgency and relaxation at the same time, and it did great blending the two together. And finally, with Bounce Man stage, probably the most controversial one for most people, because people thought that the balloon mechanics and the bounce mechanics were just not right. And I actually loved this stage. It was a fun, lighthearted platforming experience that no other level really gave me. It took the tone completely different than the other 7 levels, and it did so in such a great way. The gimmicks of the bounce could be kind of difficult in certain areas, but once you get over the initial hump, it really isn't that bad. It keeps you entertained the entire time, and there's new type of enemies that will jump out of gaps and push you back. It'll just keep you laughing and having a fun time, and even when I died on the stage, I still really enjoyed it overall. Once I figured out that you could destroy the stupid robotic balloons, then I started to really get into it, but this stage was actually one of my favorites. Now, pretty much the same as Robot Masters, many bosses had vulnerability to certain weapon types, and you had to figure out what those weapon types were. But at the most point, I had a lot of fun with some of these mini bosses, and some of them were pretty clever. With Totemer, he was a really repetitive boss, but he was actually kind of difficult to defeat for being pretty much one of the easiest stage bosses. Dreadspark was awesome, being fast-paced and with precise shooting required, meaning you had to shoot right at his sunglasses while also dodging crazy lightning strikes and zaps from all over the stage. Thrill Twins was a crazy ride where it was pretty difficult also to dodge because they flew back and forth on the screen super quick, but when you figured out where to hit them and how to hit them, it's not that bad. Cyclone W was probably my least favorite because it really wasn't that exciting, and if you have a certain ability, it is too easy to take him down. Mecha Mimostal was also a super interesting one, which you had to actually get him from below, and there's a special ability that helps you do that, but it's not especially required because there's some other things that you can do around him, and it completely changes how the boss fight plays out. Sparky was an absolute annoyance, man. I mean, you absolutely need a specific ability to even really touch him. You could try with the regular blaster, but it would take you forever. This special ability will knock him down in a couple of seconds with a couple of hits, and it just feels really unbalanced. Pikmin Digger is also a really easy one if you know how to hit him from above. And Frog Balloon is just so much fun. It's literally a frog balloon that uses his tongue to fly across the ceiling, across the stage, and he tries to eat you, and you can use slow-mo time to make it look all cinematic. And then once you pop the balloon, you'll find inside is a clown robot getting ready to inflate it once again. It's so cool. For the Robot Masters, however, I did notice a sudden drop-off of difficulty and even, skill set. Lots of the bosses just required a certain attack and then that was it. And the transformations for their double gear systems wasn't that big. With Tundra Man, he was very similar to Fuse Man, where quick time effects was just the only thing needed. When you slow down time, you could really see the direction that each of the bosses were going, and it really wasn't that hard to pinpoint how to hit them. With Torchman, just like Sparky, if you had the special ability, it was super easy to take him down, and he really didn't pose too much of a threat. For Blastman, you still needed some precise movements to get out of the way of his bomb attacks, and it could really be super precise. I mean, the bombs could be scattered all over the place, and slow-mo will help you a lot. Bounce Man was pretty easy and fun to dodge all the parts flying across the stage. Slow-mo was also a big requirement here, and a special weapon to easily pop him, obviously. Impact Man was my problem boss, where he was actually one of the toughest, if not the toughest, and he was super unpredictable because his attacks were quick and then slow, and then quick and then slow, and even his transformation with his double gear system is super tough as he nails all into the ground, and he shakes the ground every time he lands, leaving Mega Man kind of unconscious for a second, and it can be very frustrating. Acid Man utilizes the acid beneath the stage, and he swims through it, kind of shooting acid up in the air, and it's a really cool effect even when his double gear system is in place. And Brickman was actually probably the best one because his double gear transformation actually transformed his whole body, similar to Impact Man, but even more. He turns him into a giant golem, and he starts punching and kicking and throwing blocks, and then he goes to a third phase where he's back on the ground chucking blocks at Mega Man, and it just feels like it's a very dynamic boss battle with multiple stages. Now in the end game, it once again comes down to Wily Castle, and there's 4 stages in total, with the last one being a fight against Dr. Wily. But oh my goodness, stage 1 is one of the most difficult stages I have played in any video game in a while. I mean, they throw everything at you in this very first stage of the last world, and man, they do not hold back. There is so many segments where you can't even tell if the foreground is the background, and then you're jumping on these little pegs with every single enemy imaginable shooting at you. I mean, even the time gear doesn't even help you enough at this stage. This stage is just chaos at its finest, and I love it. You then enter the boss room, and of course, the yellow blocks fly in. It's Yellow Devil, and someone mentioned that the same pattern here is seen in the same exact pattern from Mega Man 1 with the Yellow Devil, but it's just such an easy pattern, but I can't remember how to dodge it. It's so difficult, and even with the speed gear, it still gave me problems. And he even has a double gear system now where he transforms into a whole bunch of mini ones just flying around the stage, and it's chaotic and it's crazy. But it's super hard and it's super challenging, and I loved it. Stage 2 wasn't as bad as number 1, but it was definitely dynamic and there were some hard sections. Most of this is just an onslaught of all the enemies from the game, and then different sections with, of course, spikes thrown in there and stuff, but it adds different elements from each of the stages throughout the game, where there's even a side-scrolling section where Wily's robot tries to smash you and it will kill you on one hit if you mess up. And this is lots of things like that with little totem pole robots that you will need to utilize the speed command, because you need to destroy them before that thing hits you. And it's just, there's lots of things going on, and I actually found this stage to be kind of fun. And then the boss with Malvern is pretty easy once you figure out his patterns, but the first couple times you will get smoked because you don't know what the heck he's shooting at you. But the double gear system is also really important here. That slow-mo gear, I cannot stress it enough. It is a lifesaver in certain instances, and I just loved it. I just fell in love with that gear, and especially in this case, because his lasers and some of his shots just come at you without any type of warning. And then sadly, unfortunately, the Wily Machine 11 really isn't anything spectacular. It follows the same Wily trope where he has this giant mech and it shoots a very basic attack at you, and you figure out the gimmick and you start shooting it, and then he goes into phase 2, and phase 2 is no better. It's a little bit tougher, but with that, once again, like I said, that speed gear, it helps out so much to dodge some of his gear throwing attacks, and you'll knock him down pretty quickly. It only took me a couple tries until I really learned the patterns, and it's really not that tough. And it's sad that they haven't really expanded, you know, Dr. Wily's final boss battles any, and I thought they could have did something really unique this time, especially with the double gear system. But, you know, with that aside, it still was kind of fun to go throughout the castle and, you know, fight his minions, if anything. Now, I really didn't want to get into the story since there really wasn't that much of a story, and the extra game modes, because that's stuff that I can talk about later on, but the main core part of the game is kind of what I wanted to go over today and show you guys what this game has to offer if you had any type of doubts about this game at all. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? Because I felt like this game was an amazing Mega Man game, and I enjoyed it so much, because Mega Man games are known to be, you know, terribly tough, and they drive you away from finishing the game. But I finished this game, and I loved it, and I have been recommending it to people all over, and I just really felt that this was a good installment in the series. Yes, some of the Robot Masters and some of the bosses could have an upgrade, especially with Dr. Wily's final boss, but in the end, I found this game to be pretty daggone satisfying, and I enjoyed it to the full length. So let me know, guys, what you think in the comments down below, and tell me what you guys want to see if I cover anything else Mega Man related. But thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time. See you guys.